All right, very good. So we are here tonight. If you're watching live or if you're on the replay, maybe you're watching Friday, Saturday. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 things that you need in order to create a successful weight loss venture. So, this is really coming from a place of working with a lot of clients myself and seeing lots of different people from different places and walks of life and different places in their lives, age-wise, and just kids versus kids graduating, retirement, and all these places. There are very clear cores to make this whole process work for you. And so, what I want to explain to you guys tonight is how to make that all happen. And I need to advance my screen here. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. So here's a way to just qualify yourself a little bit. You are definitely in the right place if you have just been trying back and forth, trying to lose weight for a long time. I'd say most of the women that I work with have come to me after years of struggling. Very rarely do I get someone who has been at a normal weight or their ideal weight for their entire lives and then all of a sudden have an issue. It's usually a long-term thing. They've tried and failed on their own. And it just at this point kind of feels unattainable, especially when you put the family dynamic in there as well. If you have young children, if you have a demanding career or whatever you have going on, it's really just pulling all of your attention away. And it's really difficult to focus on yourself for any long period of time. It can be really difficult to really get a hold on this and do something consistently. And ultimately, I want you to be able to get where you want to be with your ideal weight, whatever that is for you. And that may not be your doctor's version or society's version of what is good for you, but where you're feeling at your best, where you're feeling your most confident, where your health is good, you have more energy to do all the things that you need to do. You feel that mental focus and that clarity in there. And that is not always being at the perfect BMI or anything like that, according to your doctor. So that is what I'm striving for. And I don't want to just give you another fad diet necessarily either. We've probably tried and failed those a long time as well. And so we don't want to focus on that kind of stuff. So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on just the one thing that you really need across the board through all of these tips in order to get weight loss to happen for yourself. Make it so you do not ever have to lose it again once you have gotten to that goal ideal weight. And make sure that you are happy where you are once you get there as well. So we're going to talk about exercise, we're going to talk about food, and we're going to talk about some of the other factors that play into the weight loss equation as well, and how to really tackle all of those things all together. Okay. So more things. What else are we going to do? Things I forgot I put on here, right? We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about diet rules and how the way that you've been thinking about weight loss may or may not have been working for you. If you're here, I'm going to go ahead and say that is maybe not working for you, and just really open your mind to the possibility of simplifying things and really focusing in on the things that work. Okay. And cutting calories is not the answer necessarily either. So we want to make sure that you're doing this in a sustainable way, in a way that is supporting your body and doesn't feel super taxing either. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through the ins and outs of the program that I run. And a lot of these pillars, I'd say all of these pillars, are exactly what we're doing on a daily and weekly basis over the course of 12 weeks to help guide this process. And I would say that most of the women, we aim for about 20 pounds over the course of the program, but it's also very individual. So if a person is coming from a place where they're really just looking to lose their last 10 pounds and make sure that they stay there, a lot of women will lose that last 10 pounds, but really struggle to stay there. And so that goal can vary a little bit, but ultimately most people are losing about 20 pounds in that 3 months as well. So here's the deal. You don't necessarily have to leave your family dynamic, quit your job, find a more peaceful existence in order for weight loss to happen. We can put ourselves first, even in situations like that, even if it's only for a short time every day, to focus on these core things that are very quickly going to get you there, right? So we're not talking about spending hours at the gym and making all these curated food choices. If you followed me on Facebook for a while, you know that I'm not pulling together anything crazy. Like if I post anything, it's like leftovers that I had. And so it doesn't necessarily have to feel like you have to be this overwhelming cook in your kitchen to make this happen. And I want to let you guys know that it's not necessary for you to just settle for where you are, right? So, if you've tried and failed a number of times and you're just not feeling like yourself, it's worth continuing to push to make sure that you're getting where you ultimately want to be, because that's really going to be a quality of life issue, especially the older you get, right? I actually just met with a client this morning and she was saying, I just haven't been feeling right the last couple of weeks. I wake up and I feel my age. And for her, that equates to, feeling joint pain, feeling a little bit stiff, and just having a hard time getting going in the morning and all of that. And we had a discussion about it. I'm like, that's not normal, you don't have to feel like you're 80 years old. She's not 80. You don't have to feel like you're 80 years old and, ready to check out on any day, especially at age 40, right? So we want to make sure that we're not settling and we're not just saying, you know what, for a person with a bunch of kids and a career and all this other stuff going on, this is just expected. No, it's not. It's not the reality that we have to settle for. And really, what's going to help drive that is having a strong belief that it is possible to be more, to have more, and to feel better on a daily basis as well, as long as you're putting in the effort and you're taking the steps to make sure that you're doing that. So maybe this sounds like you. Maybe you're motivated to get somewhere, but ultimately you've never been able to follow through on any sort of weight loss plan. Ultimately, it's probably not meant for you anyway. A lot of these cookie cutter things are just not meant for everybody to succeed with. It's really for a select few. Maybe you have done well. Maybe you've done like my 5-day challenges and these other things that I have set up. Maybe you've done well with that for a few weeks, really got somewhere, but ultimately you got kind of bored with it, especially if you're not really seeing those results. And then I have a lot of women who come to me with this idea that cheat days are a thing. They have guilt around food. They can't eat certain types of food because, oh, that's bad and I'm dieting right now, so I can't have that. That is not how I operate. Okay. So we're going to try to talk ourselves out of that today as well. But that may be a little bit of a long-standing habit there. So, some other things that tend to occur are people that are dieting tend to try to create their own path against what is going on within their households and with their family. And so if you're eating chicken and broccoli and rice while the rest of your family order takeout and they're doing that, you might start feeling resentful of that. And it's just creating these rifts within your life. It's actually creating more work for yourself, which we know is not going to be something that's sustainable either. And maybe you're just not seeing any results anyway. So ultimately, why would you stick to a plan like that? And that's totally understandable. I've been there myself. So maybe you've thought too, like, okay, well, maybe if I could just get it together in all these aspects, if I had a personal chef, if I was a millionaire and I can have someone cooking for me and a trainer to pull my butt out of bed in the morning and get me to do these things and ultimately just have more of that discipline, it would all just fall into place. But the truth is, none of us really are in that situation, number one. But really, it's not a solution either. And if you're forcing other people to really take accountability for yourself and really to drive that, you're probably not going to be living a life that you want to live in that case anyway. So, what is the solution is figuring out how to motivate yourself and to have the right information and to have that support system around you. So, what we're going to talk about now is how to balance out your meals on a daily basis so that you can be eating the same things. And so, we're really checking off the box of maintaining that family dynamic and keeping the food bill in check, right? You don't want to order 2 sets of food for the week necessarily. And we're going to talk about how things change a little bit throughout the aging process. So if you were able to lose like 5 pounds just by cutting out soda when you were 20, we know that's not possible in our 30s, 40s, 50s, right? So, knowing that our hormones change and our metabolism changes a little bit, and of course, with factors, lifestyle factors like having a career versus being retired, having young kids versus older kids that are more independent, these different things can really affect your progress, and what may have worked is not working now. And then hopefully by the end of this, you're going to just feel like, okay, this seems like the way to go versus wasting time doing cookie cutter meal plans and exercise programs that are killing you, essentially. Ultimately, we don't want to do that either. And I really do want you to be more excited and motivated to get started with some of these things as well, because I'm going to show you some very simple things that you can be doing every single day. It's not going to take you a ton of time so that you can start moving forward and gaining that momentum. So there are 5 steps to losing the weight in the next 3 months. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit more about where I'm coming from. I didn't even put my name on there, you guys. But I know most of you who are signed up know me anyway, so that's okay. But let me introduce myself. My name is Jackie Durand. I'm a registered dietitian. I own JD Nutrition LLC, based out of Colchester. So I run a fully online program. So while I work and I have this home base here in Colchester, I'm worldwide, I guess you would say. But I work with people very local to us here in Connecticut. I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I've been in the coaching space for about 10 altogether through different platforms and things like that. I am in the mom club. I have a 5-year-old daughter who's very busy. We have a lot of things going on. So that busy aspect, I totally understand. I love being active and outside and doing hiking. What do we do? Frisbee golf. Like fun, gamey sort of things for fitness is what I like to do. And I've more recently gotten back into reading. I feel like college kind of wrecked that for me, all the reading we had to do. And I dropped that off for a while, but within the last couple of years, I've actually been much more into reading lately. But it wasn't always like this for me. I wasn't always a dietitian. I didn't always have my health in order. I didn't always have a balance in my life that allowed me to maintain my weight where I was. And quite the contrary, actually. So I grew up in a state of being overweight, obese for most of my childhood and really up until high school. It really caused a lot of social issues for me. I was very insecure. I was depressed. I was sleeping all the time. Basically I feel like my polar opposite from where I am right now, which thank goodness, honestly. But just thinking about the counter side of things is like I hated exercise. I wasn't treating my body well. I would rarely eat vegetables, just the state of how things were really complete opposite. I had this pattern of, knowing that I needed to be eating less. And so I'd go through periods of, really eating very little because I really had no education as a teenager about this. And then I'd obviously get back into the swing of the overeating and binge eating habits and things like that. And it was this yo-yo pattern for me. So I was yo-yo dieting essentially from the age of 16 on, right? And I tried a lot of different things for a number of years, and it really wasn't until I finished school as a dietitian and going through this and really working with patients and things like that, where I was able to consistently keep the weight off over time. And that was such a blessing for me to be able to figure that out, because it's an emotional roller coaster as well, and health wise it's not good for you to be yo-yo dieting like that either. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my background and why I'm so passionate about the things that I do. Is because I know the struggle, and I know how draining it is mentally, physically, emotionally, and I really made it my job and my mission. I guess that's such a strange word to me, but my mission to really help other people break that cycle for themselves and really just kind of figure out how they want to live a life that is more sustainable. So that's that. So let's get on to our 5 steps for tonight. So number one is all about this internal motivation that you have. So people like to talk about motivation when it comes to making changes, and especially like starting the year with New Year's resolutions and things like that. You can feel really raring to go and you make a lot of changes and you kind of just ride that wave as long as it can. But the truth is, we know that motivation is fleeting. You either have it or you don't, and it kind of comes without warning, right? So in order to make consistent progress, really, you have to look within for what is driving you internally and what is going to be something that is going to push you forward with the daily habits that you have to put in place every single day so that you can each day resolve to keep pushing forward no matter what. And even if that's giving just 5% of your energy every day to pushing forward, you can be inching forward. You don't have to be inching forward at 100%. You don't have to run a mile every single day when you haven't been able to even take a single step, right? And that is really something that is coming from inside. So really finding your fire is where this is at. So really none of the other steps that we're going to talk about can fall into place until you get number one down here. So this fire essentially creates this internal motivation for you. And when I think about this, I like to think about just like a little matchstick with a tiny flame, just kind of sitting right next to my heart. And when you feel motivated and you feel this urge and this desire to get up and move and do something, at least for me, it tends to come from right here in my heart space. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. But really, this is going to help you drive to follow through on the things that you want to do, the things that you know that you need to do. And this is something that you have to continue stoking. So if you're able to continue building that fire and growing it from that little tiny flame into something bigger, it's going to allow you to put in that long-term effort so that you can finally be consistent enough to really see results, right? And really, this is avoiding the quick fixes here. So you're not just doing something, doing like a cleanse for a couple of weeks because that's as long as your motivation is going to last. It's really about the real work that you know you need to do, changing your diet, looking at the exercise piece, and getting that all together more consistently. So, unfortunately, what I've seen is people that tend to neglect this step never actually reach their goal, right? So you really have to have this strong desire, this ability to follow through, and really just the opportunity to do whatever it takes, no matter what situations are coming at you, to reach that goal ultimately as well. So you have to have this reason to get out of bed every morning and do the things. You may be more motivated on days, some days versus others, and that's totally fine. But I think that really comes with having a clear vision of what it is you want. If it's sort of vague, saying like, oh, I want to lose weight versus I want to lose 20 pounds because I know that losing 20 pounds is going to make me feel better. It's going to improve my health. It's going to improve my cholesterol. It's going to allow me more time with my family because I'm healthier. And this is, you know, all the things, the very clear things that you want to get in your head to really find this fire. So when you're able to find it, it's going to be much easier to put the rest of what we're going to talk about in place. It's going to make it a clear choice that you're making good food decisions. It's going to feel like the right thing to do to go out and get moving. And it's not going to be coming from a place of guilt, like, oh, I know I need to be working out, right? It's going to feel good. And it's going to feel like you're sort of driving after your ideal self in this habit. And it's going to really make you able to make this commitment more long term so that you can get where you need to go. Now, if you don't end up getting this right, it's going to be hard to build habits that are going to be sustainable long enough to see any results. You know, anybody can do like my 5-day challenge or something, for example, and stick to something for 5 days. But ultimately, you know, losing a few pounds from that and then falling off on the habits, you're going to come right back where you were. So you have to build these habits sustainably long term in order for the results to continue paying off. And you may just continue buying these quick fixes. So buying a meal plan here and there, you know, trying different types of apps and things like that, to, you know, hopefully get results. But a lot of times you do get what you pay for. So, the $30 a month app is only going to take you so far. It's not really going to dive into the things that are really holding you back from really reaching this stuff. Okay. Now, here's how to do it. Okay. So, a quick exercise that you can do now, and I do suggest in the future as well. And that is really to physically write this down, pen and paper in hand, write down what it is that you really want. And I have a couple of prompts that may help get this going for you. And if you feel like this is a kind of a silly exercise, bear with me. This is actually big stuff that we're talking about. You really want to get after this so that you can make the rest of this process easier for you. So just think for a minute and just think, what is the number one reason that you want to lose weight? And write down a couple things if anything is really flowing for you right now. And that may be a health reason. What I would like to say is that a reason that is coming from outside of yourself is usually a pretty weak one. So, oh, my doctor wants me to get my cholesterol in check. But if you're not feeling like that's really driving you, okay, then what's your number one reason, not someone else's number one reason? And how ultimately do you want to feel, right? This is coming from a place of you want to feel energetic. You also want to feel balanced and in control and less anxious and all of these other things. And that can often come from these health changes too. If you're not really sure about that, you can also ask yourself, what feelings are you looking to escape from as well? Are you dealing with a lot of joint pain, stiffness? Do you have symptoms of something like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, anything else going on that you know that losing weight and getting healthy and eating healthy and putting these habits into place would solve for you? And then we can go in a little bit deeper into this too. Don't judge me on my state fair cup. We had lemonade at the fair. All right, so just looking at the future version of yourself, this is an exercise that I like to do often. If you've done the 5-day challenges, we've touched base on this a little bit, but this is stuff that we also do within the program quite a bit as well. And it's really just imagining yourself as you would want to be in your ideal skin. So once you're reaching your ideal weight, what is actually different? Like what do you actually look like? What kind of clothes are you wearing? Would you like overhaul your entire style because there's clothes that you have been afraid to wear? How do you wear your hair differently? How do you want to put yourself out there in that case? And then we want to also make sure we're moving past that physical aspect and talk about how you want to feel ultimately too. Um, and then what we do from here is really break it down into, okay, what is this ideal version of me doing on a daily basis? How am I maintaining that weight? What am I doing? Like, am I going to the gym and running on the treadmill? Am I miserable doing that? Probably not your ideal version of yourself. Or have you found some really good exercise habits that, you love going to go play tennis, or you like hiking and your goal is to hike in all 169 towns? Lots of little goals like that. So what kinds of things have you been dreaming about, daydreaming about, like doing once you hit that goal? And from there, figuring out what kind of goals will you set for yourself in that case too. So a lot to think on. So, for our time tonight, I'm just going to kind of leave you with that, but feel free to work back on that. Pause the video if you're watching replay, or go ahead and watch the replay a little bit later. That can be a really helpful visual for you. And I do suggest that you do this often. So if you think that just kind of working through this exercise once is going to be all that you need, unfortunately, you're probably going to get stuck because, once again, this is something that you need to really nurture. So if you think about that little tiny flame that is gathering here in your heart, ultimately you want it to consume your entire being, right? And so that's going to take daily, weekly work to continue growing, growing, growing until you're at a place where it's just overwhelmingly driving you in order to get to where that goal is. And I will say that's, you may be duller some days than others as well. You gotta stoke that fire and not let things get in your way. So consider things like obstacles and whatever excuses that you're kind of working with right now. Don't let them act like the dousing for the flame, right? So we have to learn how to be creative and work past the things that are happening. We have to let go of things that are out of our control. You may have days where you don't check off anything on your checklist and you just have a bad day, but letting that completely derail your entire trajectory is not going to be helpful either. So we have to learn to let go of the guilt, to accept the fact that we cannot be perfect every single day, do what we can, and keep that fire going as long as we can. And I want to give you Lauren as an example for this. So Lauren and I have been working together for quite some time, a few years. And initially when we started working together, we put together a basic plan for her. So we had meal ideas, we set up an exercise schedule for her, and really got those logistics in check for her. And she really felt motivated and confident at that time. Worked for a couple of weeks, as one would expect, but she really struggled to execute any of it. And it wasn't as if it was too hard. She was like, I don't know why I'm really struggling with this. But she was really just stuck on the why. And so we really started working and spending a lot of time on figuring out these reasons why she wasn't executing, figuring out what the excuses were. There were some logistic things we worked on, but ultimately it was figuring out her deeper reasons why. It wasn't about her family. It wasn't about her doctor telling her she needed to lose weight, any of these things. It was really about, simple things like being able to go on a hike with her friend without huffing and puffing and dying, right? So these are the things that she was trying to avoid experiencing, so that she could actually enjoy those types of activities, which she had done before. She was just done feeling that tired feeling. She didn't want to be the big girl shopping at clothing stores or have to shop at different stores anymore. And she just felt like she was just waiting for life to start, which is never a good place to be sitting. So if you feel like you have to lose the weight before you can do anything, that's just so untrue. And I'm actually very proud of her because she started doing roller skating. She was afraid to start taking kickboxing, but she went ahead and she did that stuff anyway. And she hasn't hit her goal weight yet, and that's okay. But she has started executing the plan. She has done it in a joyful way. She is a completely different person. She has still got some weight to lose per her suggestion, but we made quite a bit of progress. And in that first few months after that started to click, she lost about 30 pounds. Plus those 3 months that she was stuck. So that's a total of 6 months or so. So, I mean, just to show you how important that piece of the puzzle is, just once you get that one little mindset thing right, it can really set off a cascade of all of these habits that are going to get you where you need to go. So, just know that with step number one, it's important to have this strong sense of why so that it drives all of these other actions that we're going to put into place. So, with that said, once you can find that fire and get that going for yourself, key number two is really to focus on this diet aspect of this. So the way that we eat is really going to dictate how, just in the grand scheme of the weight loss side of this, how you're going to be able to lose the weight and create this calorie deficit for yourself. I don't care what any other diet fad is telling you. Cutting carbs is not the answer. Going keto, counting macros, these cleanses and supplements and all of these things are ultimately not helpful if you're not in a calorie deficit. You have to be burning off more calories than you're taking in order to lose weight. That is science. That is the law of thermodynamics and physics. We cannot create energy. We cannot destroy energy. We can only move energy around. So if you're taking in energy, it's going to be stored as fat if you're not burning it off. Science. That's just the fact. So try not to fall for anything that just says, take this one supplement and you'll lose 20 pounds overnight. Nope, not going to happen. But those tools can be helpful in some cases to help curb your appetite and all these other things. That's a story for another day. But what we can really focus on here, now that I'm off that tangent, is rebalancing the meals that your family is currently eating. This is really the basics, what we want to do first, number one, so that you can stay aligned with the family dynamic. You can make progress. You can ultimately reduce some of the calories that you're eating and bring more balance into things so that you can work on things like your cholesterol and your blood sugar management, that overall calorie intake, all while making you feel more full in the process. Okay. So we can eat in a way that's including our favorite things as well. I actually had someone ask me today if I believe in cheat days, which is a great question. The answer is no, because I feel like if you're doing this the right way and you're including all the things that you like, including leftover Valentine's candy, whenever you want, and you take the power away from it, like, "Ooh, I can't have that. It's so bad. It's up here on a pedestal." If you can include those things just without the guilt, you're not going to feel like you need a cheat day or a day that you can just quote unquote blow it in those cases, right? So that is going to make it sustainable for you to stick with this long term, because you're not missing out on the extra Hershey Kisses or the birthday cake and all these other things that you do want to include in your diet. And sure as hell, you're not going to cut out at some point altogether. There's never going to be a day where all of a sudden you're just never going to want those things again. So if that's what you're waiting for, you got some time to wait, I'd say. So we want to eat this balanced combination of foods too, so that you're really not hungry. So you can be in a calorie deficit, you can be burning off body fat, but you're not really noticing. I think the biggest mistake that dieters make is assuming that starving is what's helping, right? So that starvation feeling is getting them where they want to be. No, no, it is not. I can guarantee you that. It is going to be impossible to lose weight without changing your diet as well. You can try with exercise alone, but the studies prove, science proves too, that you can't do it that way. It has to be the balance of these things put together in order for weight loss to occur. So I'm going to breeze through this. When you're in a calorie deficit, you should not feel starved. Rule number one. You're going to have a variety of foods in your diet so that A, you're not bored, but you're also getting the nutrients that you need. And we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that is sustainable for your schedule as well. So creating these meal plans with lavish meals and spending tons of time in the kitchen is not where it's at. I'm not doing that. I don't expect you to do that either. And ultimately, if you're not in a calorie deficit that is too small or too large and you're not feeding your body properly, you should have actually more energy to tackle the things during your day. We don't want you wasting time prepping and cooking. We don't want you eating separate things. And it's going to be really hard to stick to that calorie goal if you feel like you're just going alone and you're just starving the entire time. So let's talk about what to do here. So if you've been with me on any of my 5-day challenges or webinars or anything before, you've probably seen this before. So what we're really talking about here is balancing what you're eating now. And that may be adding a different component, that may be balancing out the portions that you have on things that you're already serving, but mirroring your plate around this image. Okay. So ultimately, any meal that you're having is going to be in a pretty good calorie balance, and you're going to be getting the nutrients that you need. If it's about half non-starchy veggies, so thinking like things like salad, asparagus, broccoli, green beans, that kind of stuff. And then not cutting out carbs, because I know that's everyone's first thought, but maybe modifying the portions down a little bit. We tend to overeat on these types of things. So it takes up about a quarter of your plate, and then the proteins that you're choosing can take another quarter of your plate. So lots of examples can certainly fall in there. But just think about what you've had for dinner today or what you're about to have for dinner and say, how does it fit in here? What portions did I overdo it in? What did I not have enough of? And how can you make it look like this? And if you have leftovers that you're going to have for lunch for tomorrow, you can practice this tomorrow when you're at lunch. What I would say is most people slack on the veggies essentially. So we overdo it on the carb and the protein portions, and then we slack off on the veggies. So if there's really one action item, it could be making sure that any meal that you're making, more specifically lunch and dinner, breakfast can be a little more challenging, is making sure that you're getting that veggie serving in there. And then everything else kind of falls into place after that. All right. And then when it comes to meal planning, don't be afraid to start cooking towards what your family is wanting. So, especially with a family dynamic, if you can sit down with members of your family at the beginning of the week and say, "What are you guys in the mood for?" And then, if they say pizza or, chicken nuggets or whatever it happens to be, you can have those things. You can include them, but it's going to be up to you to kind of brainstorm ways to balance those things out, like we talked about, so that you can eat the same thing, but it's in a more balanced way. And for most people, I'd say it's not a matter necessarily of cooking more stuff, changing up a ton of stuff. It's more just the portioning and the plating that is really going to be the biggest driver for that success. And then, of course, we want to allow this room for sweets in there as well. All right. And here's where you might get stuck with this one too. I have so many people tell me, I already know what healthy eating looks like. Okay. But you're not finding the success either. So maybe there's an opening for something a little bit new. And I really think it's trying new foods and trying to play around with your meal timing and eating patterns and portions and things like that to really see what something different could look like, because maybe you're just stuck in a pattern, you don't really know how to get out of it. So that's a big thing that we work on within the program, is just kind of figuring out, what's going to work best with individual schedule. So we work very one-on-one with this kind of stuff and saying, okay, well, you were trying this, you're feeling really hungry here between lunch and dinner, very common. Why don't we try this instead? And that's going to help you actually from, having that snack after dinner and having these sweet cravings and things like that. And it's really just playing around with it and being open to it and really just seeing what happens that can lead you down that road. Okay. But it's helpful to have someone helping you with that, which we'll get to as well. Let's see what else. Well, you're probably going to get stuck if you feel like you need to keep restricting and you go through that yo-yo pattern of restriction and, going and doing what we call the screw it's of, screw it, the day's over. I'm just going to have whatever I want. All right. And I'm going to bring myself in as the example for this as well. So I had told you that I struggled for a long time to really maintain my weight. And so really on a yearly basis, I could see a swing 10 to 15 pounds in either direction, which just was mentally not a great place for me to be. So now I'm at a point where I can maintain within a reasonable 5 pounds in either direction. And I don't have to correct myself by restricting in relation to a binge, right? So I'm more, if you think about that as a spectrum, so you have restrictive eating versus more binge eating. If you can find yourself somewhere here in the gray area in the middle, that's going to be an easier way to maintain that weight once you reach it as well. How did I do that? It took a lot. It was moderating my diet, and really playing around with the types of foods and the combinations of foods that kept me satisfied. And as a dietitian, just having the scientific training behind it and this, looking at it as a science experiment, like, okay, let's try eating this way this week. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what worked, what didn't work, and then tweaking from there. Time's a lot of time, which I've gotten a lot better at figuring that out for other people, not always myself in here either. Sometimes it helps to be the third party in that situation. All right, let's move on here to key number 3. So we still got 2 more. So let's talk a little bit about movement and exercise. So I think exercise gets such a negative connotation. It just feels like, oh, I'm going to be sweaty and in pain and I'm going to be sore the next day and all these things. So I like to talk about movement as well. So I think another mistake that people make is thinking, well, I can just change my diet a little bit and then I don't have to do any movement. I can just be a couch potato and it's going to work. Not really. So there's a huge interplay between the way that exercise changes your hormonal patterns so that it's easier to stay within a calorie deficit. It can curb your hunger in some cases, so that it's actually easier to stay within that calorie deficit. So I'd say a lot of people think that the only reason to exercise is to burn calories off. But that's really not what I focus on. So yes, there is some calorie burn, but you tend to then eat a little bit more following exercise. Your body becomes more efficient at exercises as well. So if your treadmill is saying you're burning 100 calories for every 15 minutes, your body may not be following that same pattern, right? And so, it sort of becomes an even wash in that case. Your body has this mechanism of being able to self-correct in those cases. So it really is a combination of dieting and exercising together that help to create this place where you're curbing that hunger, you're able to stay within that calorie deficit more consistently. So, and it really is a lot of that physique that you're looking for too. So if you're looking to look, toned and tight and all of that stuff, that really cannot happen unless you are working your body and creating that toning within your muscles. So we covered some of this already. So we talked about the toning and the hunger hormones. Cool, we're done. So what's other things that are happening too? What we're looking to do long term, and this is really what we start at day 1 of our 12 weeks in the program, is looking to build strength and muscle tone, not in a way that is going to make us feel bulky. That's really sort of a fallacy that we hear. It's like, well, I don't want to weight train because I'm going to bulk up and I'm going to look like a dude, right? That's not really the goal here, right? And I understand that, but you're not going to get that unless you're doing steroids. Let's be perfectly honest. So, what we're aiming to do is to create more of this muscle tissue which burns off more calories. It takes more energy to maintain than your fat storage. And so it's actually going to increase your metabolism. So when you talk about, oh, I have a fast metabolism, slow metabolism, it has a lot to do with your muscle tone and what you're supporting within your body. What else is happening? We're creating the mental framework for all of this too. So it's exercise is boosting endorphins, which also helps to make you make better decisions. And I can say for myself, the days that I don't exercise pretty early in the day, sometime mid-morning, I tend not to do well. And I mean mental energy wise, physical energy wise, which affects then my food choices for the rest of the day. And so, just having this in place as something that is going to put you in the mental place to make good decisions is also a good reason to have it in there. And it's important that we focus on the right exercises as well, because certain types of exercises and going too hard at certain aspects of this can actually increase your hunger hormones instead of suppressing them. And it's going to make it harder to stay in a calorie deficit. We also talk about making sure that you're not going too hard too fast. You're choosing the right exercises so you're not feeling ultimately too sore. You're not hating the idea of going and doing these exercises as well. And all of that leads to that inconsistency piece, which is not going to allow you to see any results. So here's how we incorporate this in the program. So we don't talk about getting a gym membership and spending an hour at the gym. I will never ask you to do that. But we're talking about finding things and really exploring different types of movement so that ultimately you look forward doing these things. So for me, like going out for a walk, I like doing yoga, I like doing spin classes. There's a Bikram class up in Glastonbury that I do occasionally when my friend makes me go. We like doing frisbee golf, lots of different things that are more enjoyable and just they're natural sources of movement. And it's more about the social aspect and the fun of it and all of that versus feeling like I'm working on something. The other aspect of that is starting exactly where you are. So if you're coming in from a point of having zero exercise, your job is sedentary, your extracurricular activities are sedentary, and you want to start working out for an hour in the gym, you're going to quit in the week. I know that you are, right? So try to start exactly where you are. If you're starting from that status, maybe just challenging yourself with a 10 or 15-minute walk and building in that as a daily habit first. We want to have this exercise on the daily. You don't want to have these days where you're killing it in the gym for an hour and then you rest for 2 days. It's not helping. It's not creating this consistency. So we do want to have variety too. So I mentioned a bunch of the different things that I do. And so one thing gets boring, I've got something else to fall back on. And I think that just keeps it interesting, and pushes you to do more, and more often as well. I just want to talk too about the life stages aspect of this as well. So I mentioned that having the right exercises can actually trigger this hunger suppression versus this hunger uh, increase. So let's talk about age for a second. So generally up to, I'll say the cutoff is about 30, but you may be a little different. We can do things like high intensity cardio, those HIIT classes, running and training high intensity on top of strength training is totally fine. And often lifestyle factors in your 20s, if you don't have kids yet, you don't have a full career going, whatever you got going on, it may be more feasible to put it in at that stage of your life as well. Okay. But the later in life, maybe you're adding kids into the mix, you've got a more demanding career, you have more responsibility, all of these other things. And then you start running into perimenopause, 35 plus. We're starting to get into this as well. So doing cardio is no longer going to be very helpful for you. So if you can lighten up the cardio a little bit, especially if you are introducing yourself to cardio, not going for runs right off the bat and really expending a ton of calories in long doses, that is really going to change your hunger. So I've noticed just with myself, like if I do a spin class, I try to cut it off at 15 to 20 minutes because it is a very intense sort of exercise. I'm 37, so I'm in this second category here. And what I've noticed is that if I do the longer classes, they've got the trainer that I like has 30 and 45-minute classes. If I'm doing like the 45-minute class, I know that I will be so hungry the rest of the day. Like I can check my watch and I know I'm burning like 400 calories right off the bat, which feels good in the moment, but I know I'm making up for it a little bit later. And I really have a hard time controlling my appetite in those cases when I never really had an issue. So just be cautious of this. You may fall anywhere between these stages too, but just being aware that changes may be necessary, that what you were doing when you were 20 is not going to help you now that you're 40. And then we get into menopause as well. So your metabolic speed naturally decreases because your muscle mass drops when you hit menopause. That is a hormonal change. So making sure that you have a focus on that strength training to maintain and continue building muscle is vital. And then focusing on that light cardio. So again, that's going to help you sort of fall under the radar for increasing those hunger cravings as well. And then as you're aging, working on things like flexibility and balance are important too, because the older you get, the more prone you are to falls and things like that later in life. So if you're training for that now and you're continuing to build upon that, it becomes a quality of life issue as you get older, right? All right, so let's talk about making a routine out of this. So if you can create an easy to follow schedule for yourself, this is going to be key. So just saying, oh, I need to exercise more, not a specific goal, not really going to help you get there. There's going to be a lot of room for procrastination on this. So if you can find something that is scheduled and literally put it in your Google Calendar, this is going to be the best way for you to stay accountable to that as well. If you need an added accountability, sometimes investing in a class that you need to be at a specific time can be a good driver. People feel like I've invested money in something, like I can't let this go to waste. It seems like a better thing than doing it for their greater good in some cases too. And then we want to make sure that we're just reducing our overall sedentary time as well. So if you work out, let's say you do an hour a day, you spend an hour at the gym, okay? But if 23 hours of the rest of your day are sedentary, are you really getting anywhere with that? So by breaking that up a little bit, adding in movement, I always like the 10,000 step per day goal, but really just increasing as needed from where you are. Those can be great ways to, be burning more calories, be, putting your blood sugar in a better state, which controls your cravings and your energy levels and things like that too. That can be really beneficial as well. And then, like I said, put it in the calendar and then check in with yourself regularly too. Like just looking at the calendar, like how many times did I follow through on that when it was on the calendar? How many times did I hit dismiss and not actually do it at that time? Where are you physically? Can you increase something? Can you step up to a new level? Do you need new exercises? Are you getting bored? And really just make sure that you're checking in with this stuff on a regular basis. Inconsistency is going to be a killer here. So like I said, even if that's doing the bare minimum, like even 5 minutes a day, just to build something consistent for yourself, that's going to be better than going hard and not being consistent about it. You're going to assume that cardio is all you need. I think we talked about that one quite a bit. And if you think lifting weights is going to make you look bulky, we already covered that one as well. No and no. Okay. And this is exactly what happened to Sherry. So when we talked about this aging process, Sherry had lost weight previously. She was doing at that time when she came to me about an hour a day on the elliptical religiously. And she felt like if she even skipped a day, her weight would come up 2 to 3 pounds within just a day or two of skipping it. And she was not losing weight, like to her best ability, she was not able to. And it was really this hormone shift that she went through. She had 2 kids, she was at this perimenopause stage, and she hadn't adjusted anything to account for that. So she was just like killing it on the cardio, basically running herself on the elliptical to death, and nothing was happening anyway. And so what we did is we cut back on the intensity and the time on the cardio, and we swapped that time in for some strength training exercises as well. And she was able to then see the weight start coming off. So she lost about 10 pounds within the framework of the program just by making a tweak that was not that much different. So time-wise, her commitment was about the same, but she just switched what she was doing. We did some stuff with diet as well, but she was able to get down to her pre-baby weight, -2 babies, within the year. So she lost 10 within the first 3 months in the program and then continued on to get to that pre-baby weight, which is a pretty big feat for her, a year later, which is cool. All right, so we are totally running out of time, so I think we're going to run a little bit over, and that's okay. So we want to make sure that we're committing to things that we want to do, starting where we are and building that consistency in here. And key number 4 is really building the confidence that your plan is going to work. So this is another mindset thing that we talk about here. So if you have dieted and lost weight and then gained weight and had these diet failures in the past, every single time that you've done that, you have proven to yourself that you cannot do this, right? And so if you're starting this time from a place of having this spot in your head that's saying, you can't do this. Why are you doing this? Why are you wasting your time? Why are you starving yourself? That is going to continue coming up for you, right? So it's not going to allow you to trust that your efforts are going to pay off. So you have to be able to trust the process and know that the actions that you're taking are going to pay off for you, whether that's short term or long term. And that takes, that confidence that is going to happen for you so that you can stay consistent and not let that little excuse win on changing your eating habits, changing the exercise habits. Oh, it's just one more soda. It's just one more margarita. Oh, we're only going out to dinner once this week. All these little things that do matter in the long run. Okay. So in order to build this confidence, you kind of have to throw away what you've known so far. It can be very hard. And the older you get, the more set in your ways you become. So we have to understand here that if things that did not work in the past are still part of your life, you're not going to be able to succeed, right? You have to look at this in a different way in order for things and results to show up differently for you this time. It's an act of futility to continue doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. Was Einstein that says that, I think. So if you can trust in your plan, you're going to be able to move forward past a lot of those excuses. That is really the biggest thing here. And the reality check is you're probably questioning what you're doing right now. So if you're coming here, from a place of, I have a plan in place already, but you're kind of cheating on that plan by being here, right? So clearly there is a trust issue there too. If you're feeling guilty about cheating and cheat days and going off plan and all of that kind of stuff, it's probably possible that this plan is not going to work for you. So you might as well break up with it right now. So let's talk about how to build this confidence real quick. The biggest thing that you can do is having an insanely clear plan of action for yourself. And so within my program, what we do is we make daily and weekly checklists, and we have very clear expectations of, what you want to be aiming for the week. What we want to be seeing in terms of your 12-week progress, and looking at that monthly so that you're staying focused and you're staying clear on what it is that you want to do. If you don't know what you should be doing and you just wake up in the morning, you're like, I know I should exercise, I know I should eat well. Too much vagueness, not enough clear plans of action. So that is the first thing that you can do. So physically write stuff out that you want to set your goals for. Check it off. It's so very mentally satisfying when you check off a box on there as well. And it really does take a lot of time to build this confidence too. So you have all of this negative information that you've been working on about dieting in the past. And so if you're trying something brand new, you're going to be skeptical. And so once you can give it some time and you're putting this stuff into place and you can see it pay off, you're going to feel so much confident about what you're doing. And that Lauren again. So after Lauren's 3-month introductory session of just doubting herself and not being able to find that key, number one, finding her fire, she just kind of went out and said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to follow this plan blindly. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to do it. And when she started putting that stuff in place and doing it consistently, she started to gain that confidence because she started to lose weight and she started to feel better and she started to see what happened. And then building that confidence, like knowing she can do this, like that built that internal fiber even more. 1 and 4 go hand in hand. It helped her to continue building that momentum and really get that going for herself. So what we need altogether is a well-planned strategy. We need to eliminate this doubt. You have to build something that you can trust, something that fits within your schedule, something that is sustainable for the long term, so that ultimately you can stick with it consistently. So how the heck do we do all that? We work with a coach, and that's really where I come in here as well. So I mentioned, I was able to essentially coach myself to a place where I feel pretty good with my habits and things like that. But I do find that being a third party for someone else, I can really point out things that they're not seeing and look at these blind spots and help them work on ways to move past excuses and little problems, and just, even really basic stuff like coming up with different meal ideas and things, and just showing you things that you haven't thought of before, and really leveraging what I know and what I've put into practice, not only for myself, but for a ton of clients. It's going to help you get there faster, right? So if I'm looking over your shoulder and saying, okay, this didn't work this week, let's pivot, let's try something else, bringing that scientific process into that, that's going to help you get where you want to go a lot faster. And really the reality is, whether you go with a coach or not, having some sort of support network is absolutely vital to getting where you want to go. So even having a good friend, like a workout buddy, working with your doctor or things like that, someone that can be in your corner to help you work past this stuff, to help you stay accountable, and someone to help actually celebrate the good stuff that is happening as well. So you're not just there on your weigh-in and looking on the scale and you lost a few pounds and you're like, yay, to yourself, and no one else is around. Like, that's not very fun. So we like to celebrate and say, you know what? That was a hard-earned 5 pounds that you lost. That's freaking fantastic, right? So, and that just starts to build that confidence and that momentum as well. So I like to say that a good mentor will help you navigate things, will offer the guidance and help to keep you accountable. That is what any coach should be doing. But what you really want is someone that is going to pick you up when you're down here, right? So if you're in a place where you feel like you're failing, nothing is going right, and you don't want to talk to anybody about it, that is the point where you need to be reaching out, right? And so if that is not your MO to do that and to reach out for that help, a great coach is going to come in and be like, hey, haven't heard from you this week. What's going on? Let's talk about it. Let's dig it up. Let's make sure that we're working through this stuff. And that really is the difference, right? So if you try to go it alone, which you probably have already in the past, you're going to be wasting a lot of time. You're probably going to be wasting a lot of money on these quick fixes and things. And you're not going to have that confidence that your plan is working, because you're not going to know when you hit a weight loss plateau, how to shift, how to bust past it, what to do from here. You're not going to know what to do when you feel like things have been going well, but then you get your lab work results from your yearly checkup and everything is out of whack, right? Like that's the stuff that we want to work on together, so that you know that the steps you're taking are going to drive that result for weight loss, but are also going to make you healthier, happier in the process as well. And all of that, just that mental overload on top of everything else that's happening in your life, it's probably going to make you give up, right? And you may have found yourself in that situation before. All right. So I don't want you to waste your time and your money, essentially, is what we're aiming for. So what we talked about today is that one thing. So if we think about that one thing that has been tied in through here, and that is sustainability. So whatever you do from here on out, any sort of road that you take, make sure that it feels sustainable from the start. It feels sustainable throughout. Once you get to your result, it is something that you can just maintain as is, right? We talked about exercise quite a bit. We talked about meal balancing quite a bit as well. And then we talked about everything that you need for success. So getting this mental aspect right, having the right information in terms of diet and exercise and what to do with that. And then really having that support system to help you back all that up is ultimately what you want. So if you do put all these things in place, you can expect to hit your goals, right? You got all this stuff in place. That's wonderful. What I like to think about this as is, if you've got three pillars, essentially, that's the education piece, getting that right information, you have that mindset in piece, and you have the support to follow through. It's like the legs of a tripod. If you kick one of those legs out and it's not working well, that whole thing is falling over. So you really got to make sure you have all this stuff in place. But ultimately, you'll know it's working because you will have hit your goal. You will have a little bit more freedom. You're not going to feel guilty about including foods that you like. You're going to be eating the same things as your family. You're going to be feeling more confident and in charge of everything. And you're not going to feel like you have to go on and off diets. You're just going to be, okay, this is how I operate now. This is how I eat. This is what I do when I go out to eat. This is how I exercise. This is what I do when I'm on vacation, all of those other things. So really, you have a choice now, right? So we've talked about all of these things to do. So you can either, say, how do you do? And say, thanks for the information, and continue doing things the way that you've been doing. Likely getting the same results going forward. Or you can try to shift your thinking on these things, try something that is a little bit different, veer the path a little bit, and see what happens from there, right? So obviously the results are going to be a little different if you're doing different things, and hopefully that is in your favor as well. So I just want to share with you what I can help you for. So I've been talking about my 12-week program a bit all along. So what I can do is offer you a quick strategy call. So getting on a call to say, all right, what exactly is it that you want to work on? Starting to work on some of that why, and then start working on some of the how. Like, what can your next few months look like? Let's get clear on what it is you want and what path you're going to take. And ultimately, what I'm here to see is you succeed. And so giving you the guidance to get you started is really what I'm after, whether you decide to work with me or not. But if it feels like a good fit and you want to go for something like the 12-week program, that can be good as well. So part of what we do is make sure that we're a good fit working together as well. I think that's a really important piece of that, and making sure that we jive well together if we are going to create that sort of relationship too. So if you are in a place where you're seriously committed to just trying the best that you can, you're open to a new way of doing things, and you're really committed to the work, which is, making the diet changes, doing the exercise, doing what is necessary, not relying on these quick fixes, then this may be for you. And ultimately, if you resonated with my message, even just getting on a call to say, help me figure out what's next, even if it's not with me, great, right? So if you are looking for someone to do the work for you, I can help you with some of the logistic things, but ultimately it's up for you to execute. I cannot come to your doorstep, knock on your door, and get your butt out of bed. I cannot make meals for you, unfortunately. I wish someone would make meals for me, but we already know that's not possible. And if you're really interested in just a quick fix, that is not how I operate. And I think we all have figured that out by now. So the reason I'm doing this is my thing, right? So I have been there before. I have seen how much of a struggle it is. It is still a struggle for me, still, even just to maintain things. But it's so much easier now knowing what I know. And I'm just really here to share that with everybody. And so what we're going to do really is work on all of these steps. So if you decide to join the program, we're really talking through that in on a grander scale over 12 weeks. And you really do start to see things happen within the first few weeks. So I just did a check-in for someone today who just hit her month, and she's down, goal for the program was 20 pounds, and she's at 16 in a month. So awesome. That was such a great day. And really, it's really about just following through and maintaining that accountability. Initially, as you build that confidence in yourself and that support system and building that fire, that is what the structure is for, so that past that, you're able to really continue on your own, so you're not figuring it out by yourself. So I am going to put an invitation link if you are here live and you'd like to take me up on that offer for the 30-minute strategy call, you're welcome to. In the replay, I'm going to put it in the YouTube comments in the post, and when it comes through your email, you'll get a link to do that in there as well. But that is more than enough for tonight because we went a little over, but you know me, so that's just how I operate. I always talk. But I want to thank you for joining me tonight. If you're watching on replay, thanks for taking the time to really put into yourself and really invest in something that is going to be a next step for you as well. So I hope to see you on my calendar for that strategy call, and have a fabulous rest of your night.